The growth of the Long Island Sound podcast has been exponential, and it's all thanks to our listeners and especially our guests. We endeavor to reach an even broader audience, so help us grow in 3 simple ways. Number 1, subscribe to the gigdestiny.com site. Number 2, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And number 3, call the listener line and leave your comment. The number is 631-800-3579. Find the Long Island Sound wherever you listen to podcasts, and remember, be generous with your joy and let the music take you on a journey.
Thanks for joining us for the Long Island Sound podcast. Each week we explore new music and dive deeper with the artists and their stories behind the music. Please subscribe and rate and review us wherever you stream this podcast. Here's your host, Steve Yusko.
Today we travel to the Hamptons, East Hampton that is, to meet a fantastic trio of artists with diverse backgrounds in music. We'll unpack 4 of their songs which cross various genres and discover artists of various disciplines outside of their music. They call themselves Out East. There's so much to learn and enjoy in this episode. Stick with us. Check out their song, Just Dissatisfied, featuring Starlight Tyler on vocals.
Sleep last night, turning from side to side. I'm not sad, just dissatisfied. 'Cause you're gone. Now I'm alone on my own. Why did you go and leave the blues in my head? I'm not sad, just dissatisfied. 'Cause you're long gone. Now I'm alone on my own. Why did you go and leave the blues in my head? I'm not sad, just dissatisfied. 'Cause you're long gone. Now I'm all alone on my own.
Today's episode brings us out to the east end of Long Island. You know, the Hamptons can boast about their beautiful shoreline, their infamous celebrity sightings and posh mansions, their glorious farmland and home to the arts. But the Out East Band is unique in that besides their prowess in the performing arts, we'll discover a commercial artist, a photographic artist, and a luthier. Their music is as diverse as the landscape of the East End. And so I welcome John Jinks, Carlos Barrios, and Gerry Giliberti to the Long Island Sound podcast. Hey, Gerry, did I pronounce your name right?
It's a really Giliberti, but that's
Giliberti.
okay.
Well, you know, we got to get it right. Gerry Giliberti. Hey, there's so much great practice and research on my end, huh? Hey, guys, welcome to the podcast. I really appreciate your time in being here.
Thank you.
So we got all three guys here. So let's see how good they get along and who fights for the microphone.
Well, there's a fourth person who's not here that we added recently. This is John speaking.
Okay.
And her name is Starlight Tyler.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Female vocalist that we've added this year. And she's starting to work. We're starting to write songs with her, and a nice addition.
So she's featured in the song that the audience heard prior to your introduction, Just Dissatisfied, if I recall.
That's true.
All right. So now you're more than a trio. Now you got a gal in the process. That puts an interesting dynamic to things. So let's start from the beginning. How did you guys meet?
I'll start with that. So we've all lived out here forever, 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
And I just basically through playing in bands, and Gerry and I were in a trio, actually the original Out East, which was quite a few years ago, but it was with a guitarist named Brian Leclerc who moved away.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how Gerry and I kind of met to start this group. And then Carlos, we've met through, again, he used to come to our gigs.
Yeah.
First off, but also through his practice of making guitars, and he's in the community too. And so then I knew he was a bass player, and we just put the group together, and that's pretty much been it.
Nice. How long you guys been together?
About 3 years, probably. This is Carlos.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I met Carlos when we had taken a break from the original Out East, and John and Carlos were playing together. And I remember seeing him at an art opening. They were playing as a duo. And that was the first time I had seen Carlos, playing with John. Although I did know Carlos because we used to have a Thursday night jam session that Carlos was at. So I kind of knew him then. But I didn't know him as, working with John. So that was all kind of new.
Cool. I always ask, I kind of run into this question. I'll ask each of you to kind of respond to this individually is, at what age did music find you, and when did you really come to the conclusion of, hey, I can really do this? Why don't we start with you, John?
Oh, okay. Well, I certainly teenage years, picked up a guitar, the whole thing of wanting to meet girls, and, as most teenage boys do.
Right.
But I was into certainly the scene, and got into fusion music, actually. And I was playing in bands through high school into college, and got into, all different kinds of music, even though it started with that fusion stuff, but went into more of a alt rock thing. And when I lived in New York City, was playing in a lot of bands, and was mainly playing bass. And this has been the first band that I was playing guitar in as a lead instrument, and singing and writing. So, and that's the other thing is probably about 85% of the material I've written for this band. Okay. The rest is covers, but we're pretty much an original band. So
nice. Yeah, I always make this distinction with artists who actually apply the trade of taking the muse and developing it, as opposed to the rest of us who've written 1,000 pieces of songs in our heads that go out into the ether. So I have a big admiration for singer-songwriters who actually go through their craft and woodshed it. Not only their instruments, but also the songwriting practices. I find very unique. We'll get in that too a little bit later. How about you, Carlos?
Well, I moved from Guatemala. That's where I'm from originally.
Great.
Back in '85, and I lived in LA for about 5 years, and then when I moved to East Hampton back in 1990. I started traveling with a cousin of mine that plays piano. So I started seeing him, rehearsing and going to gigs with him, just listening to the music. I noticed the bass player in the background over there, doing his thing. And that's definitely what called my attention about, pretty much all the groups there you see it's only one bass player.
Right.
You can have 2 guitars, 2 drummers, 2 piano players. There's only one bass player back there. So that's what really called my attention. And I started playing around 93.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's when I started doing the craft of repairing instruments.
Nice.
That's when I started doing pretty much, I actually started repairing instruments before I started learning to play the bass.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's great. I got to tell you, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Go ahead.
I got to tell you my Guatemala story. So,
wow.
So
That's great.
just a snippet. It's actually my daughter Faith's story. And when she's 27 now, but when she was 16, she went and did a service trip to Guatemala.
Oh, wow.
And it was very eye-opening to her in a fantastic way to shape her life.
Oh, wow.
And leaving the United States and getting outside of our bubble of affluence to a degree and going to another country, she was she was predisposed to thinking they would be very sad, poor people. And she was delighted to find out how joyous the people of Guatemala are and how colorful their outfits were. And it just, I'm smiling now because it brought such joy to my daughter. So
I'm glad that was a good way of enjoying the country, because it's such a beautiful country for sure.
Absolutely. And I have a couple of friends that I went to seminary with that were from Guatemala as well, and they're fine gentlemen, just really great guys. Great. Hey, Gerry, we're not ignoring you. We're jumping to you. So I hope you remember the question.
Yeah, for me, the music started really early because my mother used to work at Kresge's, which is like Kmart now, and the way it was set up was they would have like cosmetics and a counter for that, and then records. And so the young people that were at the record counter, they would always give my mother records to bring home, and then I get to listen to all these records. And eventually, I decided my uncle was playing the sax. He was like a professional musician. I wanted to play the drums. So my uncle got me someone who had a set of Japanese type drums at that time. And I got the set. I started practicing, and I got into a little band, with friends on the block. And by 11 or 12, we had a band, and we started playing around any place, any party, anything that we could do. Mm-hmm. And it just kept going on. And eventually that band stayed together when we started playing out in Hampton Bays. And we rented a house and did all the summer stuff and started playing out here. And then that kind of broke up, and I went back to Nassau County. I started working for agencies, doing the tuxedo thing every weekend, playing that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then eventually I moved to East Hampton full time, and I got into rock bands out here and started playing. I was doing, like cover rock bands with originals and things like that. And eventually I got involved with John, and we started playing together. So that's pretty much how it worked out for me.
You know what you bring back to me. I think we're probably in similar age, and I won't ask your ages unless you want to give it up. But when you talk about getting the records, your mom getting the records handed to you. We used to have this place called. I grew up in Levittown, Island Trees.
Oh, yeah, I grew up in Bethpage.
All right, so we were neighbors. I grew up down the block from Pergaments on the. I lived in Bethpage, but was in Island Trees School District. So, and we'd go to the record shop when we weren't getting our bowl cut haircuts,
in pergaments, and I think it was like 50 cents a 45 or something like that. But, couldn't afford much. So whatever you got, you played to death, It was just great. It was just kind of cool seeing, what was on the chart, of the top hits. And it was a cool way to learn music and get influenced by it.
Yeah, I was in the same place. I went to Pergament and Jolly Rogers and all of that. And we used to actually make our own records. I know in Jolly Rogers in Nunley's Happy Land, they used to have like a place where you could record records. It cost like $3. It was a lot of money, and you'd have to get your 2 or 3 guys together and you record stupid songs.
Wow.
So you could do all that. You remember at Nunley's Happy Land, that was like part of Jolly Rogers.
Yeah. By the way, it was designated as Smiley's Happy Land. Nobody called it Smiley's Happy Land. It was Jolly Rogers, and they had the bumper cars and the roller coaster and the carousel with the brass ring and the whole 9 yards. And I was always too short for the damn bumper cars, so that damaged me for the rest of my life. But Oh yeah, God! We'd watch the Mickey Mouse balloon ears flying over that left kid's hands would fly over our neighborhood.
And then once the Beatles hit, that was it. That changed everything.
Well, tell me, out of the three of you, what were your biggest? Were the Beatles your musical influence? Let's go round robin again. John, what did it for you? What grabbed you?
Oh, God. Well, I was kind of. Like I said, I was playing in the stage band, guitar in the stage band, and then playing bass in the orchestra, and then I was playing in rock bands. And I think back then we were listening to like Miles Davis, Live Evil, and John McLaughlin, and but still rock bands and some blues. But so back the early stages then. But as time went on. The Gambit. Everything from Led Zeppelin to Jaco Pastorius to, we in the band that I was playing with Gerry, we were doing some Weather Report stuff and just other things that, then you get into the whole. I was into Britpop for a while. I was into electronic music because I had a studio when I lived in the city. I actually was doing my career as a visual artist, a commercial artist, but it was in a studio where I had a full analog studio with 24-track machine and massive console and all this gear.
Oh, neat.
And then I was doing alt rock stuff, and the grunge scene came in, but I was still into pop bands like Jellyfish and, different, so all kinds, Blur, that whole era.
Well, that's kind of reflective in your music, and I don't pigeonhole anybody into one genre, but just listening to what I could listen, from your website and stuff, you cross the gamut, which I find really interesting. As far as I love discovering, reminiscing about some music, but really discovering new genres and exploring it. And as a band, that's pretty cool because it's a little challenging, I would think.
Yeah, we weren't trying this band. I tried to not just stick like, we're a alt rock band or we're, we tried to do all kinds of music, blues and jazz and reggae and of course rock too, because we like to rock out. But it's, I think it's just more interesting for the listener. Because I think there's a lot of bands you hear out here and they do like one thing. And after a set, you're like done. With us, we have 3 or 4 sets of material and it's different every set. So it's kind of we mix different things in. We can do vocal harmony things and that's really great too. And adding Starlight was just a whole nother bonus because she's a powerhouse when she's really on. Wow. So it's a really great thing.
How'd you find Starlight? How'd she come into the group? I know it's pretty recent, but.
Yeah, but a few years ago, like I said, this guy Brian that we were playing with, Brian is an amazing guitarist. He's blind, and so he had to have care. And I was over his house one day checking out guitar pedals and stuff, and Starlight was there doing volunteer work cooking for him. Wow. So she heard us talking and she heard me playing guitar, and so she popped her head into the room and said, who are you? And then she introduced herself. She's a singer, and then pretty much the rest is history. It kind of one thing led to another.
Oh, that's great.
That's great. So it's chance meeting.
Wow. Carlos, what was your influence? What would you say? What kind of hit you musically?
Right before I I even started playing music. I was listening to a lot of Latin music, like the Cuban music, like Tito Puente and Mongo, Santa Maria, and Cachao. Influence like that, give me a lot of background on the bass. That is,
Sure.
The Latin music has a lot of influence, bass influence on their music. So, and when I moved to the States, I started listening to Led Zeppelin and The Doors, stuff like that, the Beatles, and Pink Floyd. Those were the groups that definitely. And then after that, I discovered Jaco Pastorius too.
Oh, wow.
It's definitely.
Now, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just want to mention to the audience, like all the different people, all your different influences that we're talking about, including what you guys do besides music. We'll have links to those websites and those people in the chapter marks. So if you want to explore more about the people or you don't know about a certain person that we're talking about, you'll see a web link to that person, whether it's a wiki link or some of their music, so you can get an idea of who we're talking about. And also the background for you guys. Happy to expose your other arts out there. So
I appreciate it.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Gerry, how about you?
For me, there's a few of them. In this band, I mostly do background harmony. So for me, early Beach Boys and then the Beatles. But then I was really into Hendrix and a lot of the 60s and early 70s soul music, like Sam and Dave. That's where that type of drumming, I really like that. Also, in Mitch Mitchell, that type of thing. And so those were my main influences for the type of music. It relates to some of the music we do here, but those are really my influences.
Nice. Why don't we do this? Let's take a break, guys. And when we get back, I want to talk about where you play around, and then we'll jump into another one of your songs. I think it's time for the audience to hear some more of your work. So hang with us, everybody. We'll be right back with Out East. At the Long Island Sound, we're much more than a podcast. We're building a community. Please go to gigdestiny.com. Check out all our social media links. Subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast. Please comment. Call the listener line. Tell us what you think, what questions we should ask, who we should have on the show. And most of all, we thank you for your generous support. And remember, support the artists who are guests on the show. Now back to the podcast. Hey, everybody. We're back with Out East. And we've got a trio of guys here with extremely diverse backgrounds, both musically and artistically. But I got to ask you guys, what's the neighborhood that you play in? You're out in East Hampton, I guess, all three of you. Do you stick to the East End, or do you go out from there?
We stay pretty much out on the East End. It's just the travel thing. During the summer, everyone knows the traffic is a snarling mess. So
it sucks.
Well, say you got a gig, you got to play 3 sets, and then it's an hour and a half each way if you go too far west. So we, even if we play like in Montauk, Amagansett, Southampton, Hampton Bays. I mean, we would like to do some winery stuff, but it's, again, North Fork. We might branch out to the North Fork a little more. There's a couple good places to play there. So in this next coming season, we'll see where that takes us. But everything else is, there's a few venues out here. Montauk has a few places. The Talk House is always fun. And so, and we're actually playing there soon. So it's kind of
nice.
It's good. It's for right now, we've been getting some good gigs and it's been fun.
Great. Yeah, the travel thing can be kind of arduous for sure. I know I live in Babylon. Going out east, you got to plan it to get out there, and it's never a Friday afternoon. I'll tell you that. You're out there on Thursday if you're smart, Yeah. But I tell you, it's for people who don't know, the East End is absolutely gorgeous. It's otherworldly from western Suffolk County and Nassau County, which is more densely populated, densely residential, and I equate the Hamptons and the North Fork to New England, really more New England than New York, for that matter. So, Hey, I'm kind of babbling here. I apologize. Let's talk about the song Flower Power. If you can give me some background on that, John, and then we'll take a listen to that.
Okay. I wrote that song a long time ago, actually, when like I said, when I lived in New York City, and I was kind of writing a piece that was like Eleanor Rigby-esque, and I wrote it just to be with guitar and strings and then vocals. That was it. So it was a very stripped down, like Eleanor Rigby has those strings, and how it's kind of like that kind of thing. And, but when this band was put together, we started just playing it like a rock tune and didn't do the full like production that's on the website. So I thought, well, let's bring that back. Let's, I'll write some string parts. We'll do some fun stuff. I started playing this double neck guitar that I had converted to an electric sitar. So, so that's on there. But now I actually play the song with a real electric sitar, not a converted guitar, even though that guitar is really cool. It's a Dan Electro. But so it kind of just went that way. And we started figuring out a way and using some samples. Gerry plays a Panasonic hand sonic thing with Tabla samples, and we have a loop going on part of it that's a tanpura, which Carlos used to play a real tanpura, which is just a 4-note drone that you use to start the song. So we thought, well, this is crazy. Just record it and hit a loop. So we use that, and it blossomed into this thing that's more of an epic song. We don't perform it in that many places because some places just wouldn't get this type of song because it's a psychedelic tune, but still has has rock.
With CBD shops about to open up all over the place, it could be a pretty popular tune.
Yeah, I think you're right. We'll have to,
might even be a branding theme tune for some shops. I'm an ideas man. That's all I can say. Right. Hey, I got to ask you this, John. How was it tackling the electric sitar? I mean, that is such a unique instrument.
Well, it's funny because when I bought this Tampura a few years back, and the same time it was at an estate sale, and this guy had a sitar too, and I thought, oh man, I can't buy that sitar because it's like you have to really get into it. I just didn't have the time. But after I got this guitar that I converted to a sitar, I thought, wow, this is such a cool sound. So then I was able to find an electrified one, and just, like anything else, you start messing with it. I'm a good enough musician. I can put something together, but I also tune it to the song. A sitar is normally in C or a D or C sharp. I tune it to E, which is the key of the song. So so that helps. And it's, but it is, it's one of those things that just adds another, kind of flavor to the tune.
Now, me being a total layman when it comes to that, what's the unique part of the sitar that gives it its sound? Where the face of the guitar and the wood gives it its sound through the bridge. What does it for the sitar?
Well, the sitar, if when you hit the string and it has a kind of that twang to it, that's because the string is actually hitting the bridge in a way that makes it vibrate with the bridge. So it kind of hits it not like a guitar bridge is, and it gives it that sound. Okay. But the thing about it is it's really only a few notes that are the strings are, and they're pretty much fourths and the roots. So it's a real easy kind of way to play, or a fifths and the root. So you can really, as much as you would think it's not, you're only using 2 strings really on a sitar. The rest you just hit and have them either as drones or they're the root sound. So you're using a melody string mainly, two strings. So you can, it's like, just think about playing a guitar with 2 strings and then hitting drone strings. It's kind of like that way to think about it. Cool. And then you have sympathetic strings that this electric guitar, the way I've got it set up, I can't hit the sympathetic strings. When you hear like on some of the Beatles stuff where it sounds like a harp would do, like that, the glissando down of a whole set of strings. That's really cool to have that on a sitar, but my electric sitar doesn't have that.
Gotcha. All right, don't give all the mystery away. Don't tell me it's easy. It's a damn hard instrument to play, and this guy's an expert at it. Okay, we'll just cut out the simple stuff, Hey, everybody, let's have a listen to Flower Power. We'll be right back after the song. Have a listen.
I leave it up to the politicians acting out on parade, setting the table oh so politely. A new world in the making. Details, order spills. It's class dismissed with no homework assignments. School boys with bigger toys. They're castaways like Robinson Crusoe. It's always better when you sleep with your eyes open. It's always better when you sleep with your eyes open. Flowers everywhere, exploding like a song. Laughter fills the treetops here. Everyone's having fun. If you thought all members were alike, let me fly this by you. No discounts apply, it's second rate. They cut your angels in two.
Everybody, we're back. What a great tune, Flower Power. It's just the sitar. That's the coolest thing. And you guys kind of shine in that song. I really like listening to it. Hey, you know what? There's this mystique. So I'm a guy from Levittown, and celebrity sightings out east. You've got to run into celebrities every day out there when you're walking on the street, I would think.
As you do, yeah.
Going down to the deli to get a pack of smokes, and so we were talking. Reason why I'm joking about this, I was talking off in the break. I was talking to John. So, John, why don't you tell us your story about Paul?
Okay, so there was this is years ago when he was still married, and there was a friend of mine that was a cook at a restaurant out here, and he's a drummer too, so I knew him through music. And he'd like hip us. Paul McCartney used to come to this place, so he'd hip us when he was going to show up, and so a small little group of us would like go, and like we're all waiting for Paul. So
was he a vegetarian then?
I don't know. This was
because he is today.
Yeah, this wasn't a vegetarian restaurant. This was more like a pubby kind of place. And anyway, so we went, and we're waiting there, and he came with his wife, and they were at the bar, and he came over and said hello, and we were like, hey, love your work, kind of thing. Like, what do you say to this guy? So, but he was very friendly. He wasn't because there was hardly anybody in the place too, but it was really great. It wasn't pretentious or anything weird, and it was here I am telling it on a podcast. So
that's neat. That's just how about any of the other guys, or are you just with the common folk?
Well, one other thing, I used to play in a band in the city with all these Broadway stars. And the guy that was the guitarist in the band, his name's Michael Cerverus, major Broadway guy. At the time, he was doing Tommy. He was Tommy in Tommy on Broadway. And through that, of course, the Pete Townsend connection. So there was at one point, I am jamming in a guy's living room with Pete Townsend in New York.
Come on.
No, I'm not kidding. And it was just like, people with guitars hanging out, smoking weed, drinking beers. It was crazy. But we also did a performance right after them at the China Club. And it was so loud. I was playing bass. I turned Entwistle's amp down half of what he had, and it was still freaking loud.
My God.
It was crazy. That was
Thunderfingers, they used to call him, I think, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Thunderfingers.
Well, I've never met anybody out here. I think I've seen some, but I did get to meet Pete Best.
Oh.
If anybody knows who that is. And I was on a tour, a Beatle tour in England and in Liverpool, and we got to go to see the Casbah, where his mother had this underground club, and Pete Best was there, and he greeted everybody. And then during that time, they had a big festival, and he actually played with his band. There were all these tribute Beatle bands, really cool ones. It was a really big festival that they were having in Liverpool, and so Pete Best, he's a little obscure, but got to meet him and some of the colleagues, and saw some of his early drum sets that he had and things like that. So as for a drummer, it was a lot of fun.
That's neat. When you can touch a piece of history, that's kind of neat to me. Now Carlos. So Carlos is a luthier. He makes. You tell me, Carlos. I know. In your bio, there's one particular guy that jumped out at me.
Yeah.
So what, if you can talk about it, tell me.
I can. I just met G's a couple of years ago.
Did he pay his bill? That's what I want. Did he pay? Did he tip well?
He definitely. He's such a really nice person. He's a very down to earth person, and he always comes in and says, "Yeah, I bring one," but he always brings two. Every time he brings a guitar to my shop, but very, very down to earth person. I met Chad Smith from Chili Peppers also a couple of
Oh, wow.
times at the Tall House through a friend of mine. We got introduced a couple of times. That's my encounter with celebrities.
Nice.
But,
now, is your shop in Sag Harbor?
No, it's in East Hampton.
Oh, it is in East
Yeah.
Hampton. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in my house. I have a small shop outside where I do all my rough cuttings and stuff like that. And then I work out of my basement. I have my shop in my basement where I can have a controlled environment for all the material that I have.
Nice.
And every time, like September is probably the best time to mill material.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I usually do it once a year. And this year I'm just hesitant to do it because we still have a little too much moisture in the air,
Really? It's almost like making pizza dough.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've been aging the material for over 20 years that I haven't living in my house. So I have material that I have that long in there. So if I introduce moisture to it, I'm gonna be jeopardize those 20 years of being dry. Every time I cut a kit, it's gotta be with the right temperature and the right weather for it. So I don't waste any of that time of me drying the material.
How is it getting exotic woods? Is it difficult, or do you have enough of stock over what you've accumulated over the years?
Through the years, over 35 years that I've been collecting material, because before I even knew I was going to be a luthier, I collect material because my dad was a carpenter.
Okay.
And
Wow.
we worked together in this country for many years. And then I collect material to make furniture because that's
Okay.
what I wanted to do to begin with that
Sure.
material. But when I got introduced to music and, like I said, going to gigs with my cousin really opened a totally different door of creativity on the instruments. When I start playing the bass, I start listening to Jaco, and I wanted to have a fretless bass. And I looked for it for a couple of months, and then I said, you know what, I can make one of them. And that's what I did. That's when my work with instruments began.
Now I got to ask you this, because at least as far as a knucklehead from Levittown knows, luthiers are not easy to find. Do you study under somebody to become a luthier? Are you self-taught?
I'm self-taught. I'm a self-taught luthier.
Wow. And then it's word of mouth, basically.
Pretty much. All these years that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I made cards, but I never did. The last few years, I've been trying to advertise a little more. I just don't want to get overloaded with instruments, because then you're losing the precious time with each instrument.
Right.
And
right.
that's what I want to deliver. I just want to deliver quality, and
Nice.
that's what I, finally.
So I'm going to explain two ends of the spectrum. So we have a luthier in Carlos that is so good, in particular, about when he actually cuts his wood. Okay, and I'm going to tell you my horror story. I had an Ovation guitar with a cedar top, not thinking that it should be in a humidified room with some moisture in the air. And I get a call from my daughter, was 12 at the time, and she said, "Hey, Dad, your guitar exploded."
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Yeah, the whole bridge just popped off. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I re-glued it. It looked like crap, but it was playable somewhat. But yeah, it's important.
Yeah, it's very important to even apply a little moisture to the instrument. So, the instrument is always expanding and contracting. So you want to keep that movement,
Gotcha. Now, as I look at the guitars, you see those guitars behind me? So do I get a spray bottle and just spray them up?
No, with a wet rag. a
Okay.
moisturized, not
See?
yeah.
I'm really good at this music stuff. Is that why the strings are rusty? Oh, okay. Hey, let's get into. I'd really like to talk about. So we talked about a little bit about Carlos as a luthier. Gerry, tell me about your work, because I really love your bios on your website. By the way, the website is outeastmusic.com. And the artwork, it just kind of blew me away. It just really kind of put a smile to my face when I see what you guys are into. So tell us a little bit about your background, Gerry.
Well, I started out in college as a graphic artist, doing graphic art and photography, did weddings and things like that while I was in college. And then eventually, I tried to do more of my own types of photography and eventually created a group, was part of a group out here called the East End Photographers Group. And eventually I've been running that for many, many years now. And we have a lot of art shows, things like that, here, and different locations from, West Hampton, Remsenburg, East Hampton, Southampton, even Montauk, they have some places to show work. And so I've been doing that for many, many years. And, I had my own darkroom when everyone was doing film, and that's how I came up, learning how to do film and having the darkroom. Actually, I still have my darkroom. It's kind of, I'm not doing anything in it right now. But recently I started shooting some film again. So I have some film that I want to develop, but been saying that for like a year and a half or more. Everything's digital.
And now it's recorded, and now I'll put pressure on you to get it done. Because everyone's hearing about it. There's no pressure like that.
Well, a lot of young people now are becoming discovering film, and so that's kind of a new thing. And but everything's digital now. So we have we just had a show recently at a place here called Ashwag Hall, and that's in East Hampton. There's an art show there every weekend of different types of art. So that's what I've been doing. I've been busy doing that. And, hopefully I'm going to take a couple of trips soon this year, finally, and, get some new images.
Nice. Yeah, I was out west. I drove from Tucson, Arizona up to Utah with my daughter. And then Mount Zion National Park what's that picturesque? It was great. Wow. Yeah. Great place to go. Only spent a couple of days there, camped out there, and just really, really nice. I took a couple of pictures too, digital, of course. It's interesting when you talk about the younger people getting into the film. It's just like, the vinyl coming back, where people are, even artists are releasing albums with a vinyl counterpart to it.
And cassettes too. I don't think it's going to go back to 8-tracks, but definitely they're putting cassettes out as well.
I know. I had an 8-track in my '69 Nova. Loved it. And I played the Doors Soft Parade nonstop because I was crazy. So, John, tell me about your stuff. Looked really cool. Love the artwork. Pretty neat. So,
well, I lived in this. I'm originally from the Midwest, and I moved to New York.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Exactly. I will never move back there.
You were on the lam? What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. It's like, get me the hell out of here. No, but I was in Wichita, Kansas. That's where I grew up. But no, I moved out to New York to follow my dream of being an illustrator, and pretty much stayed in New York and kind of did the best I could and did pretty well. And so I was working a lot after a few years at agencies, and was one of the premier illustrators in the country. Really, I had reps in Japan. I had reps on the West Coast.
Wow!
I worked with all the greats in New York. You name it, the agencies there, I worked there. Freelancing, of course. That was my whole life was freelancing, but did that for a while. But the whole time, this is the interesting thing, is I was into music, and I had the studio, and I had this one easel in the corner, and a drawing table, and that supported having this full-on recording studio. So it was interesting that my passion was always music, but the work was the work, and I'd always been drawing and painting for years. But the interesting thing looking at that work is that I was using an airbrush. So that was kind of something I discovered in college, because I was painting cars.
Putting the girls on the vans and stuff like that.
No, not doing that. No, just repairing. I wish. No, it was just doing that. But that turned into kind of like to help me with my career. And then after that, discovered computers and cameras and started doing motion work, which is on my website for bands and different. I did a lot of work for the pharma industry. So I kind of branched out into that, and and now all that stuff is kind of slowed a bit because, of course, COVID killed everything that was freelanceable. But in a way, it's kind of we'll see where it goes from here. But it's also, it's given me more time to focus on music, which has been great. And
it's refreshing to hear. And I interview a lot of musicians, and I've heard the sad stories of I had to put it down to do this or that, support the family. And the fact that you were able to, all you guys, to get into the visual arts and the crafting with Carlos and play music and keep that alive and going and bring really all the things that you've been exposed to into your music really kind of forms who you are as out east today, all those influences. And it's just refreshing to hear, because I've heard the sad stories all the time. Too many to count, to be honest with you.
It's true. It's very true.
Hey, what song would you like the audience to hear next?
How about if you put that live Wandering song so people could hear what the band sounds like live?
Okay. All right. So let's listen to Wandering. It's a live version. And when we come back, let's talk about the song. Sound good?
Good.
All right, everybody. Check it out. We'll be right back.
I've been listening to you, and I won't be fooled again. No, not again. Reaching out asunder as I turn into the view. Slow that break into, break into.
We're back, guys, from the song Wondering. Who's going to tell us about it?
Oh, yeah.
John can.
Okay, I'll
talk
say.
about it.
Let's see. What can we say about Wondering? Well, it's one of the few politically oriented songs we do. I mean, the lyrics are basically, don't get fooled by the powers that be, and that's so important.
So timely. Holy crap!
Yeah, today, and it's also what's nice is it has a nice message. It's about unity too. It's kind of got. There's a section of it that is kind of like, this big uplifting kind of climax in the tune. But it's great. It's kind of, I think, the only reggae tune we're doing right now.
Yeah, that's the only one.
But it's definitely, it's our version. I mean, this is the thing. Anything that we do, it's not like straight, even like the tune that Starlight sings on. That is a minor blues that I wrote, but it's not really a straight minor blues at all either. So it's kind of we take a different twist to it, and Wandering is the same. We have a section where it goes into ska, and then like I said, it goes into this kind of hard, almost chili pepperish type of thing where I'm playing wah-wah guitar, and it's just like gets funky, and then goes back to reggae. So it's interesting tune.
And I get to do a drum solo, so that doesn't happen too much,
Why they won't let you? What's the matter? They won't let you?
Well, and so I get to do a drum solo, and it's kind of like Latinish a little bit, and then it goes off, and then we go into actually we come from the ska part into a drum solo, and then we kind of come back. So it's really kind of different for us. So it's kind of a long, for people that have been listening, it's kind of a long piece, but it's really fun.
Neat. Excellent. Well, I'll definitely leave links to your other music if that's okay with you. It's on SoundCloud, I believe. I'll leave them in the chapter marks for people to discover your music and go from there. And then we'll also, so anyone who's a guest on my program is welcome to, I post any of the stuff, any of the events, any of the gigs that you have on the Gig Destiny site. Actually share a Google Calendar if you're interested. And, just put the news up there where you're playing. So what events do you guys have coming up?
Pizza Bar, that's in Amagansett. That's coming up on the 30th of September. Mm-hmm. And then we're playing Halloween weekend at the Talk House in Amagansett. Nice. So that's a Friday night. That's the Friday. That's the 28th of October. That'll be fun.
Do you need tickets to get into the Talk House these days, or how do they manage it?
Yeah,
okay.
You got to pay to get into that, but we keep it cheap so that we play for the people.
I knew
the rich folk.
I knew I liked you guys. How about a press pass for Steve?
yeah, I'm sure we could probably get that
on the list.
Right.
Yeah.
I got to talk about out east. What I found kind of interesting during COVID. All right, this is out of left field, and we can get into any other events that I may have just jumped on your conversation, John. I apologize. Is I found that during COVID, you had this migration from Manhattan out east, where people said, you know what, I could work and stay here, and I'm sure that's changed things to a certain degree, where you have more, what I would say, full-time residents out there. Have you seen that impact, or not so much?
I've seen it, but actually right now it's starting to change back. We're starting to see a little bit of a change back because COVID's essentially over, but not,
Right.
And
it's controllable, yeah.
Yeah, so we're finding that some people who didn't sell out and came out here and just sold out in the city and are now living here full time. A lot of people didn't do that. So now they're kind of moving back. And so we're starting to see that. And that's what I've been told. And I've been seeing in my own neighborhood that's happened. But yeah, there's a lot of people who are now full timers.
Yeah, there's still a lot of traffic every day. It's a lot more people living here now. Definitely, right. That changed so much in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So, like Gerry was saying, that a lot of people sold their stuff in New York City, and they would just move out.
Yeah, back in the day, you could drive, whether it's the North Fork or the Hamptons, once you got past Labor Day, it was nice, quiet, and peaceful. To a degree. A lot of contractors heading out and doing work during the off season. You get what I call the contractor parade down Route 27 that everybody gets caught up in.
Oh no, that trade parade is still on.
Still on, yeah.
That's it's.
But I will say I see very less affluent helicopters flying over Babylon on the way out to the Hamptons. So
yes,
I'll take
definitely that definitely stops during the summer.
They're already here. That's why.
Too.
That's right. So, John, I know I jumped on. You were talking about events. Or anything else that you want to point out as far as what you got coming up beyond Stephen's Talkhouse?
Well, Carlos has an event coming up. Why don't you talk about that, Carlos?
Yeah, let's plug it.
We the last few years we've been working on a documentary. They came upon a guitar that I was building, and tragically, the person who's gonna get the guitar ended up dying.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it was an instrument that I wasn't gonna finish, and I just left it in my table until I met John, and that's how I met John, through fixing instruments. Some of his guitars, and he came over to the shop and looked at the guitar. He asked me, "What's that over there?" And I gave him all the story and what I was doing to the bracing system that I was using on it, which is pretty innovative.
Okay.
In terms of enhancing sound to the instrument, very very different approach to the bracing. So that's what I've been using on my instruments since I discovered that.
Nice.
And he decided, because he's a filmmaker also, he decided to do a documentary about it. That's gonna be, we're trying to finish it now, and we're gonna be showing it at the church in Sag Harbor.
Okay.
On at the end of October.
Wonderful.
So that's going to be a Knowledge Friday, they call it. That's what they trying to bring the handmade craft to Sag Harbor, and they're doing a really good job with it. It became that church. They remodeled it, and it became a art center for the community.
Wow, that's great. You got to let me know when that comes out, because I'd love to definitely repost it, and I'd love to see it. I'd find a great interest in that. And you bring up a good point about, hey, the American dream was send your kids off to college, and it may have been your kid doesn't have to go to college. He can learn a trade and do very well, and support themselves and do what they love. I think the tide, at least from an idea, is starting to turn. And it's our education system that has to bring it along. Hey, I went to Catholic school. We didn't even have shop, which if you've seen any of my woodwork, you would say, yeah, he never took shop. So,
no, it's just, if you like the craft, definitely you get into it for sure.
Right. What's interesting, what you do to me is that you can build a piece of furniture and no one worries about how it sounds unless the drawer squeaks when it goes in, right?
Exactly.
But you're working with wood to get tonality and things that I don't know about out of it.
And that's actually the title of the documentary. It's
called, come on. Really?
In Search of Tone, the Guitar Maker's Path. That's the title.
Oh man, I love it. Oh, I wish you all the best with that. Absolutely.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yep.
All right. Any other events?
Jerry?
No.
Jerry, any future drum solos you have planned out in the gigs at all? Or you kind of just go with it when no one's paying attention?
Right.
Hey, I do want to hit one more song with you guys, because I think you got great stuff. Tell me about what other song we should profile here.
I guess we could do this kind of a simple rocker called Brigitte that I wrote about a lovely French girl I met on the streets of New York.
And where is she today?
In France.
I
I'm
just
here.
blew the
She's
mystery.
there.
Oh, well.
Well, it's kind of like one of those where it's a fling kind of thing, but she's still on your heart a little bit. So
Oh, how nice.
perfect inspiration for a song.
Wonderful. All right, everybody, let's listen to Brigitte, and we'll be right back after the song. Thanks so much, guys. We'll be right back.
I've been thinking about Brigitte. Fact is making my heart stumble as I sit here hoping for release. Don't know if I should freeze or follow, and I can't think what's true. The touch was oh so tender. I remember when I lost my innocence with my Brigitte. Oh, she's fine, my Brigitte. I've been wasting all these hours away, thinking what I could do with her, and my mind slips into a dreamland with that girl. Symptomatic, trance beyond belief, and I can't think what's true. The touch was oh so tender. I remember when I lost my innocence with my Brigitte. Oh, she's mine, my Brigitte. Come over here, honey. Yeah, you call me when you walk in the room. When I find French perfume. You know what I'm talking about? When I find lingerie down that Champs-Elysees way. Don't give me none of that laissez-faire. Just bring it over here, my dear. And I can't think what's true. Her kiss was oh so tender. I remember when I lost my innocence with my Brigitte. Oh, she's fine, my Brigitte. That girl, she's mine, my Brigitte.
Hey, everybody. We're back after hearing, what's that song, John?
Brigitte.
Brigitte, a long lost love with a little twinkle in our eye. So I really appreciate that song. Hey guys, it's really been great having you on the podcast. You have such interesting backgrounds. It's great that you guys are playing together, and I could see some great growth. And I can't wait to see you guys live. I'm going to do my best to try to make it to Stephen Talkhouse, especially if there's a ticket waiting there, and we'll call for Steve Yusko. Are you there?
There will be.
Did I lose you?
No, there will be.
There will be.
Put you on the list. Put you on the list.
No, we're a good band to hear live. We really put on a good show.
That's great, and that's a great place too. So it's
Yeah, it is. It is. Good sound.
It should be a lot of fun. So I end a lot of my podcasts like this, and it was something that my friend Bob told me. He said, you can account for what's in your bank and what you own. You can never account for what time you have left in this life. The fact that you guys gave me a little over an hour of your time today, I really do appreciate it so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate the time you spent with us. Please subscribe and comment and visit us at gigdestiny.com. Till next time, be generous with your joy, keep your spirits high, and let the music take you on a journey. Be well. Peace. I hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to rate and review the show wherever you listen to this podcast. And if you'd like to partner with us, go to gigdestiny.com, hit that donate button, and help us to keep the conversation going. Be well. Peace.